Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we will learn about a very important and a must-know topic as a React developer, and that is the Context API. We will see how we can use Context API to manage the global state of our application. And I will also show you some of the best practices that you can follow while using the Context API in your application. Let me show you the demo. So we have a very simple login form here and we have the header where you can see that on the right hand side, we just have a welcome guest because right now we haven't logged in with any of the user. And if I click on the submit, then I have a validation on the login form. And these validations are done with the help of the React hook form package. And it is covered in one of my videos. So you can find the link in the description, or you can also click on the card above and jump to it directly. So what happens if I type any of the username and I will type some password, and when I click on the submit, then you will see that whatever the username I have typed, I can see this username here as welcome the page. And also you can see that we are now logged in as the page. And although these two are very different components, so this is a part of the header component and this is a part of a different component. So we can pass the data in different components, and all this is happening with the help of the context API. So if I click on the logout, then we are logged out and we can see again the welcome guest and we see the login form. So let me type another one, and this time I'm going to give it the page malvia. I will submit the form and we see again the page malvia here and the page malvia here. And if I click on the logout here, then we will be logged out from our application and we will see the login form. So if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Alright guys, I have an exciting news for all those who want to become a software developer or have just become a software developer. Unacademy brings you a platform where you can get access to weekly shows which you can watch live. Some of the shows that are going live soon on Unacademy are hiring updates in startups and major tech companies. You will see the eligibility criteria and how you can apply to these jobs, how to approach a code chef problem, pre-placement talks where HR from the top companies come and talk about their hiring process, top 20 questions which are asked in the interviews and how to solve them, accelerating development by using real life projects, and life journey of fellow coders working in FANG companies, and many more shows like that. You will also have an option to interact with industry leaders on the platform and get a chance to take part in an online mock interview to sharpen your skills and get real-time feedbacks. You get all this and much more for a nominal fee of rupees 999 for the entire year. And with my code UNACADEMY, you get a 10% instant discount and you just pay rupees 8999. Want to make sure your college project ticks all the boxes? Want to make a project that helps you to get top internship? Get a chance to get your college projects reviewed by one of the India's top YouTuber, Striver. He will help you in understanding what things went right, what mistakes were made, and how to correct them. Let me show you a quick demo of how you can get the subscription. So you will find the Unacademy career as a software developer page link in the description. Once you click on the link, you will land to this page where you will see a get subscription button. You just need to click on this button and you will land to this page where you can add the coupon code. So our coupon code is the page 01. And if I apply it, you will see that we get a 10% instant discount. Now let me show you some of the courses that have already started on the Udemy platform. So if I scroll down, then you will see that these are the top educators and these are some of the courses which are coming soon. And these are the recently started courses. So if I click on the see all, so we will be able to see all the courses that have already started, like the learn and grow, interview preparations, and many more. And one of the interesting course is the learn and grow, where Raju Vikramaditya is going to explain us everything about the project and how we should make the project and the review of the project, which we saw previously. And lastly, you can check this weekly course schedule along with date and time so that you can plan accordingly and don't miss this golden opportunity. You will find all the links related to the Unacademy platform in the description below with the discount code that you can use for subscription. All right, guys, so I have already bootstrapped my React application and I have removed all the unwanted files that I don't want for this video. And I have created few components, so I will give you a quick walkthrough so that you can have a good understanding of what the project I have at the moment. So the first thing is we have the app.js, and inside the app.js, I have two components, which is a header component and a auth component. So let's go to the container folder, and inside the container folder, I have the header.js. All right, so this is my header component, and inside the header component, I have an h2 and I have an h3 tag which shows the welcome and the user. So right now the user value is the guest. So if I show you here, then you can see that this is our h2 tag and this is our welcome guest and this is our header. Then we have the auth component. So inside the auth component, let's go to the auth component. And here I have just created a simple flag. So if it is true, then I want to show the login form component. And if this value is false, then I'm going to show the home component. So right now it is true. So that's why we see the login form. And if I make this as false, then I will be able to see the home component, which shows that you are now logged in as a username. So this is a very simple stuff. So I'm going to change this back to true. All right. And now let's go to the login form. So in my login form, you will see that. So this is the same form which we built in one of our previous video where we discuss about how to handle and validate form in React.js using a package called React Hook Form. So if you have missed that video, then you can just click on the card above, or you can find the link in the description below. All right, and then in the home component, I simply have a simple h3 which shows some of the text. So that's all the simple thing I have. Now let's start building the application with the help of the context API. So what I will do is first I'm going to create a new folder in the source, and the name of the folder will be context. So this is how you will create a context folder in your project, and where you will keep all your context that you are creating for your application. All right, and now inside this context, I'm going to create a file which will be our user context. So that will be a user context.js. And if we want to create a context, we need to import create context. So let's import a create context. So I'm going to write here as create context, and this will be coming from the React. So I'm going to import it. All right. And to create the context, we just write a user context. So let me add the user context, and this is equals to the create context. So I'm going to write the create context. And inside this create context, what we will do, we are going to pass the initial state. So the initial state is the object. All right. And I'm going to set three properties in my object. So the first property will be the username, and the username I'm going to pass it as null. And the second property I want to use is the login and the logout. So I will have a login function. So let me create a login. This login is a simple arrow function. And we are not writing the definition of this login form. We are going to write it definition later on. And then I'm going to have a logout. So let me create a logout function. All right, so now we have created the context, and this is how you are going to create the context for your application. And now if you want to use this context, what we can do is actually going to write here and export. All right, now we have exported this, and now we can go in our app.js and we can use this context. So let me import the user context from context. So I'm going to write the context, and this will be the user context. All right, so now we have imported the user context. And if we now want to pass the value of this user context in our child components, then we can use it here as, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to write it as user context dot provider. All right, and this provider can take the child elements. And we are getting an error that this is not a default export. So I'm just going to add the braces here. All right, so this is how we will provide the user context provider. And if we go to our application, everything is still working, nothing is bricked, so everything is fine. And if you want to pass some values to your child components, you can actually add a value here, and this value can take the object. But we are not going to take this approach, and we are going to do it a more cleaner way. So what I will do, I will go to my user context, and here I'm going to create a function. So let me create a function. So I'm going to export this function, and this function is the user context provider. So I'm going to write this user context provider, and this is going to take the children's. So let me add the children. All right. And this is simply going to return the user context provider. So what I will do, I will go here and I'm going to cut this part from here and I will add this part here. All right. And inside this, we are going to pass the children. So whatever the children's are. So I'm going to write the children here. All right. And now we can simply use this here. So I'm going to import it here and we can simply provide this. So let me add the user context provider and I'm going to remove this and we are going to cut this and we are going to add it here. All right. So this is more neat and clean way of using the context provider. So now all our logic and everything is residing in our user context to keep the code of the app.js very neat and clean. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of a use state and I'm going to create a state variable here. So let me add a user and I'm going to add a set user and this will be equals to the use state. All right. And I need to give an initial value for the state. So what I will do, I'm going to create a initial state here. So I'm going to write a constant and initial state will be, so this is going to be an object and I will write the name. So the name of the object will be as guest. And what I want the other field is I will have a flag that will be east guest. So I'm going to write a guest user and I'm going to set the value as true. All right, and this is going to be initial state. So I'm going to pass the initial state like this. Now the thing is I want to consume this user in my header component. So this is my header component. Let's go to the header component and I want to consume this user value, which is the guest, and I want to have it in my header so that I can add the guest here and not the hard coded value. So how we can use that? So we know that if we want to consume the context API in a function component, we can make use of a hook called useContext. And if you don't know about the useContext, then I have a complete video on it. You can click on the card above and jump to it directly. But I'm not going to write the useContext in the header itself. What I will do, I will go and create a function. So I'm going to write an export here and this export function, and I'm going to use a use user context. So I'm creating like a custom hook and which can be used. So what I will do here, this is going to have the user and this will have the login and this will have the logout. And all these can be consumed with the help of a use context. So I'm going to write a use context here. All right. And now what happens whenever I use this function has to return me all these values. So I'm going to write a return here. And what it will return all these three fields. All right. And now we can use this function in any of the functional component in order to access the values of the context API. So let's go to the header and inside the header, I'm going to write a constant and this constant will be give me the user. So I want to consume the user and I'm going to write here as use user context. All right. And if I do a simple console.log, then let's see what we get in this user. All right, let's save it and let's go here. And it says that use state. Okay, so we made a small mistake. And what is that mistake is this should be a capital. All right, so we have this context provider and let's go to our app.js. And inside the app.js, we are going to change this to a capital. All right, let's save it. And we are still getting an error because we did not pass the context here. So whenever we use the use context, we need to pass the context as well. So here our context is the user context. So let me copy this and let me add it here, user context. All right, I will save it. And if I go to the localhost, then we can see that we don't get any errors. And if I go to the inspect, then if I go to the console and we see that our value is undefined. So the user which we are using here is undefined. And that is because we have forget to pass the value in the provider. We are trying to consume a value, but we are not providing that value. So if I go to the user context, then you will see that we have the value, but we are not providing any value here. So we need to provide a user here. All right, and now if I save it and if we go to our header, we will just remove this for now, otherwise we are going to get into an error. And if I save it, then we will see that we can only see the welcome. And if I go to the inspect element, then inside the inspect element, if we go to the console, we can see that we have a header and we have an object and we get the name here. So we can use this name to display here. So here what we are going to do, we are going to have the user dot name, and this is going to give us the guest. So we have done this part, and what we need to do next is we need to add the values and then we need to submit the form. So if I submit the form, so let's go to our login form. So this is our login form, and inside this login form, when we click on the submit, so this is where we click on the submit. So on submit, we need to have a login functionality. So let's go to our user context. And inside this user context, what I will do, I'm going to write the definition of my login and logout function. So let's write the definition for the login first. So I'm going to write a function, and this function is going to be a login function. All right. And what we will do, whenever a user is trying to submit the form, we need to set this user. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to set this user, and this user will have the is guest user as false. All right. And we need to have the name. So I'm going to add the name here, and the value of the name is whatever the value we fill in our input box. So this will take a username, and I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it here. All right. And similarly for the logout function, what we need to do is whenever we try to log out, and in that case, we are not passing anything, and we just need to set the user to our initial state, and the initial state was the user. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it here. All right. Now, in order my login form to use this login function and the logout function, I need to provide these functions. So this is our provider, and let's add the login and let's add the logout. All right. So we have the login and the logout. The next thing we will do is that whenever we submit the form, we should be able to log in. So let's go to the login form. So this is our login form. And this is the data where we actually get the data what we have filled in the form. So what I will do here is first I'm going to take the reference of my login form. So I will have a login, and this will be equals to the user context. All right. So if you have forgot that we have a user context, and this exposes the user, the login and the logout function. So that's why I'm able to access the login here. And when we have the login, what I will do, I'm going to copy this login and I will pass the data dot username. And if you want to see that what is inside the data, then let me show you what is inside the data. So let's go here. Let's go to the inspect element. Let's go to the console. I'm going to clear the console. I'm going to add the page and I'm going to write test. And if I click on the submit, then you will see that the form has to fill the username as the page and password as test. So we are passing this username to the login function. And when it comes to this function, what it takes the username and it sets the username here. And it also set the is guest as false. As soon as it sets the username here, our header will try to access the user and it's going to give the user dot name. So that is why we are able to see the page here. But let's add the logout button as well here. So what I will do, I'm going to write a condition here, and this condition will be that our username dot is guest user. All right. And if it's true, then I need to have a button, and the button will be having a class name as UI button blue. All right. And I'm going to write here as logout, and I will save it. All right. As soon as I save it, you will see that now we have a logout button. But when I click it, nothing is going to happen. So let's add the on click here. So I'm going to write a on click, and this on click will actually going to call our logout of the use context. So we have already provided the value. Let's consume the value. So I want to consume my logout. So I'm going to add the logout here and just going to copy and just going to add the logout here. And that's all. So if I save it, then now if I click on the logout, you will see that it gets the guest back. And if I submit it, it will give me the page and the logout. If I click on the logout, it give me the guest back. But what happens is I also want that when I click on this submit, I want to change this component as well. So for that, let's go to our auth component. So inside the auth component, we have this condition. So we are not going to give any hard coded value of the condition. And what we will do, I need to access the user in my this function component. So we can access the user as constant, and this is going to have a user. This will be equals to our user context. All right, so what I will do is I'm going to add a user dot is guest user. If this is true, then that means it's a guest user. We need to show a login form. If it is false, then we need to show the home form. All right, and that's it. If I go to our component, then we can see that if I refresh my page, and let me test it. So I'm going to test and test. If I click on login, I see the test, I see the logout button, but here I still see the username. So we need to update the home. So now let's go to the home, and you can see that we have created one context at one place, but now we are able to access the values of the username, the logout login function in any of the component which are the child components of this user context. So this is also a child component of the user context, and I can access it here as well. So I'm going to write constant. I need to access the user, which will be equals to the user context. All right, and here I'm going to simply going to add the user dot the name of the user. All right, and I also want to have the logout functionality here. So for that, we can simply copy paste the value which we have it in the header. So I'm going to just do a copy paste of this. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add this here. All right, but I don't have a logout, so I need to get the logout as well. So let me add the logout. All right, and now we should be able to see everything. So if I refresh my page, if I write test here, I'm going to write test here. I submit it. I see a welcome test. You are logged in as test, and you see a logout button at both the places. If I click on the logout, I will be able to log out. Let's try another thing. I'm going to add Nikesh, and I'm going to add Nikesh. If I click on submit, I should be able to see this. So what we have done is we created a one context file which is related to our user session, and we have provided the value from this user context to its child elements. So now all the child elements will be able to access the values which are provided by the user context. And that is what we are doing it. So if we go to our app.js, we have a provider. Inside the provider, we have the header and we have the auth. And this auth is also having two different components inside it. So if we go it, then we can see we have a login and we have a form. So we don't need to do the prop drilling. We don't need to pass different props to the nested level of the component. These all can be solved with the help of the context API. So that's all I have in this video. I hope you understood the context API now very well. And it's one of the best practice you can do while using the context API. You do everything, whatever I have mentioned in this user context. You have the provider as well, and you have the consumer as well, the way you consume the context data in the components. So this is how you will consume it, and this is how you are going to provide the value to your child components. So I hope you like the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest updates. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. I will also add the GitHub link for this code in the description below so that you can download and you can have a reference of it. Thank you. Thanks for watching.